On October 23, 2025, June Lockhart, the last surviving adult star of Lost in Space, passed away at the age of 100. Before she left, she had given interviews that contained things the network had spent decades hoping would never become public. Today we are climbing inside the Jupiter 2 and pulling out every secret that was buried for 60 years. These people carried stories their entire lives, and now, finally, every single one of them can be told. The final survivor's shocking revelation. There is something that happens to a person when they have outlived nearly everyone they worked with. The instinct to protect the story quietly disappears. When the cameras roll for what might genuinely be the last time, you stop calculating your words and you simply tell the truth. That is exactly what happened in the final years of the Lost in Space cast. By 2025, only 3 members of the original Robinson family remained alive. Bill Mumy, who played boy genius Will Robinson from age 10 to 14, had turned 72. Angela Cartwright, his television sister Penny, had turned 73. Marta Kristen, the eldest daughter Judy, had reached 81. And before June Lockhart, the family's television mother, died peacefully in Santa Monica, she had already been speaking more freely than at any point in the previous 6 decades. In her final interviews, Lockhart described exactly what it felt like to learn that Lost in Space had been cancelled. She did not receive a phone call. No producer sat her down and thanked her for 3 seasons of work. She read it in a small notice buried in the entertainment section of her morning newspaper. That was the complete farewell CBS offered to the cast of one of the most watched science fiction shows in American television history. Lockhart was not the only one who carried that wound for life. Bill Mumy, 14 years old when the show ended, told interviewers decades later that he wept when his agent called with the news. He described filming that final season in the genuine belief that a 4th season was already arranged. Then the renewal list appeared, and the Jupiter 2 was not on it. A 14-year-old boy, closing a chapter that had consumed his entire childhood, learned it was over from someone who had to say it over a telephone. Mark Goddard, who played rugged pilot Don West, had died of pulmonary fibrosis on October 10, 2023, at 87, before those final revelations emerged. Jonathan Harris, the irreplaceable Dr. Smith, passed away on November 3, 2002. Bob May, the man who spent 3 years inside the robot suit, died in January 2009. Dick Tufeld, the robot's voice, followed in January 2012. And yet, the 3 Robinson children who remain are still finding each other. On March 17, 2026, Bill Mumy posted a photograph of himself alongside Angela Cartwright and Marta Kristen, captioning it simply, "Judy, Penny, and Will Robinson spotted on Earth yesterday." 60 years after the show first aired, they are still showing up for one another. That single fact tells you everything important about what this show really was, beneath the foam rubber aliens and spray-painted props. Jonathan Harris rewrote his own character and stole the series. Before Jonathan Harris was Dr. Smith, he was a pharmacist's son from a 6-story tenement in the Bronx who had constructed himself from scratch. His parents were Russian immigrants. His father worked in Manhattan's garment district. The boy who grew up speaking thick Bronx street slang decided early that he was going to become someone entirely different. He changed his surname from Sharasuchin to Harris at 17, against his father's furious objections. He earned a pharmacy degree he never used, fabricated an acting resume, and talked his way into a career that eventually included Broadway, The Twilight Zone, and roughly 125 stage productions. When Irwin Allen offered him the Lost in Space role, Harris read the character and immediately recognized a career trap. Smith was a cold-blooded spy who killed a guard in the pilot's opening minutes and reprogrammed the robot to murder the Robinson family in their sleep. He was designed to be despicable and written out within 5 episodes. Harris understood precisely what this meant. A role that ends in 5 episodes is not a career. It is an expensive dead end. So he began rewriting things. Quietly at first, he arrived on set with entirely new pages of dialogue composed overnight. He would announce to the cast, "Let us go over the scene. I have changed all the dialogue." Bill Mumy, still a child then, watched this and later described it with genuine awe. Harris would reconstruct scenes and engineer every beat so that all roads led back to Smith. The cowardly eye rolls, the melodramatic wailing about his back, and especially the cascade of insults directed at the robot, none of it appeared in any script. Harris sat up, nights constructing phrases like bubble-headed booby, nickel-plated nincompoop, and bellicose bumpkin. His reasoning was perfectly logical. The robot was wise to Smith's schemes, so Smith had to attack it constantly to prevent exposure. Every insult was a survival tactic dressed as comedy. By the time Arwen Allen understood what had happened, 500 fan letters a month were arriving for Dr. Smith. Allen had no realistic choice but to publicly celebrate it. Harris negotiated a special guest star credit across all 83 episodes, reportedly the first time that billing structure had appeared on American television. But Allen's public praise concealed deep, private discomfort, because the actor he had actually hired as his leading hero was watching his entire role dissolve before his eyes, and nothing could be done about it anymore. Guy Williams and the slow erasure of a man born to lead. Guy Williams arrived at Lost in Space as one of the most recognizable men on American television. 4 years as Zorro on Disney had made him a genuine star, and the show's merchandise generated $11 million within months of its premiere. He was tall, fencing trained since age 7, and genuinely excited about playing John Robinson, the brilliant mission commander who would lead his family across the universe. This was supposed to be his show. The erosion happened gradually enough to feel almost polite. In Season 1, Williams' screen time began shrinking as the Dr. Smith storylines expanded. By Season 2 it was a settled pattern. By Season 3, it was simply the production's reality. Williams appeared on set, delivered a handful of lines, and stood in the background while Jonathan Harris, Bill Mumy, and the robot carried each episode forward. Mark Goddard described the atmosphere plainly. The show started moving toward the robot and Smith, and there were hard feelings from Guy especially. Williams filled his idle hours listening to classical music, reading astronomy books, playing chess, and buying stocks. Bill Mumy gave him the nickname The Comb because Williams groomed himself constantly between takes, a man converting restless energy into something harmless. In one reported exchange, Williams erupted with the words, "God damn it, I will kill you, Harris," before adding after a pause, "I mean Smith." Whether accidental or not, it captured something entirely real. After Cancellation, Williams discovered his Hollywood career had not survived being a background figure in his own show. But halfway around the world, things were completely reversed. Zorro had become a cultural institution in Argentina. The government gave him a luxury marina apartment. The wife of President Perón personally invited him to perform at a charity event. He spent his final 21 years living as something close to royalty in a country that never forgot him. On May 6, 1989, police entered his Buenos Aires apartment after friends reported his disappearance and found him alone. A ruptured brain aneurysm had killed him, approximately a week earlier. He was 65. Nobody had known because he had been living alone, and mobile phones did not yet exist. The man promised the lead of a television series died undiscovered, a week before anyone found him, in a country that valued him more than his own industry ever had. Bob May, the robot suit, and 3 years of invisible suffering. Every child who watched Lost in Space in the 1960s loved the robot. It waved its accordion arms, barked warnings, and somehow felt warm, despite being constructed entirely from metal and rubber. For 3 years, the person physically inside that machine was suffering in ways the production company had quietly decided were not their concern. Bob May walked into the Lost in Space audition by accident while applying for an entirely different job at 20th Century Fox. The audition was brutally simple. If you fit inside the suit, you are hired. When May climbed out after his first session, he was cut and bleeding from the metal edges. He took the job anyway. The suit weighed approximately 200 pounds. Under studio lights, the interior temperature became what May later described as his personal jacuzzi and sauna combined. The costume was merely airtight. On at least 2 confirmed occasions, May passed out inside it from oxygen deprivation. The production company's official response was that there was no time to stop filming. Despite performing every physical movement that made the robot one of television's most beloved characters, Bob May was never once credited on screen during the entire original run. Not a single episode in 3 seasons carried his name. The practical consequences were lower pay and dramatically reduced residuals. As the show grew into a global phenomenon, May and his wife Judith were living in a mobile home park in the San Fernando Valley. In November 2008, the Sayre fire destroyed their home. 2 months later, May died of congestive heart failure at 69. What defined his later years was not bitterness but extraordinary generosity. He became one of the most beloved figures on the science fiction convention circuit, remaining at signing tables until every single fan had their moment. He said once, "I will stay at any convention signing autographs until the last fan is finished, or the cleaning crew forces me to leave." A man made invisible by the industry that profited from him chose to ensure no fan ever felt invisible in front of him. The $600,000 pilot and the compromise that changed everything. Before there was a robot, before there was a Dr. Smith, before a single foam rubber alien or a catchphrase about pain, there was a 60-minute film that Irwin Allen believed was the finest work of his career. He was wrong about many things over the years, but on this point, he was probably right. The original Lost in Space pilot, titled No Place to Hide, was filmed in late 1964 on a budget of approximately $600,000, making it the most expensive television pilot ever produced at that time. The story was clean and entirely serious. A family launched toward Alpha Centauri were knocked off course by a meteor storm and landed on an alien planet where they had to survive. No villain, no comedy, no robot, no internal conflict. It played like a genuine film. CBS bought the series immediately, then handed Allen a list of demands. They wanted a recurring antagonist. Allen suggested Ming the Merciless. His story editor pushed for something closer to Long John Silver. They settled on Dr. Zachary Smith. CBS also required a robot. The original Sirius pilot was locked in a storage vault. The show premiered on September 15, 1965. 2 facts that rarely get mentioned: the Jupiter 2 interior set cost $350,000, making it the most expensive standing television set of its era, more costly than the entire Enterprise bridge on Star Trek. And the theme music was composed by a 24-year-old named Johnny Williams, who later became John Williams and wrote the scores for Star Wars, Jaws, and Indiana Jones. Cancellation, the Carrot episode, and what 60 years finally revealed. The cancellation came down to a negotiation. Irwin Allen refused to lose. CBS offered a 4th season with a 15% budget cut. Allen said no. The show was cancelled, not because audiences stopped watching, but because the producer would not accept less money. CBS announced the decision on February 19, 1968. June Lockhart read it in her morning newspaper. Bill Mumy cried, "No wrap party, no farewell, no handshake from the network." The episode, now recognized as Lost in Space's most symbolic creative moment, aired during the final season. In The Great Vegetable Rebellion, Dr. Smith is transformed into a stalk of celery, while the central villain was a man in a full-body foam rubber carrot costume. The writer arrived at Harris's dressing room holding the script behind his back, too embarrassed to hand it over. Guy Williams and June Lockhart could not complete their scenes without laughing. Irwin Allen was so furious that he wrote both of them out of the following 2 episodes, at full salary, as punishment for laughing at his own production. The episode later appeared on TV Guide's list of the 100 greatest television episodes. It ranked at number 76. The City on the Edge of Forever, widely considered the single greatest hour of Star Trek ever produced, appeared at number 92. The Carrot episode ranked higher than the most celebrated episode in Star Trek history. Television is not a rational medium. The Netflix reboot that ran from 2018 to 2021 honored what came before with genuine elegance. The rebooted Dr. Smith was given the full name June Harris, combining June Lockhart and Jonathan Harris into a single character. Bill Mumy appeared in the pilot as Dr. Z. Smith. Angela Cartwright played Dr. Smith's mother in Season 2, and June Lockhart at 96 years old, voiced Alpha Control in Season 3, her voice carrying the same intelligence and warmth it had carried since 1965. Bill Mumy and Angela Cartwright and Marta Kristen still find each other. Just weeks ago, in March 2026, they proved it again over lunch in Los Angeles, laughing together, sharing memories of Irwin Allen and Jonathan Harris, and a fiberglass spaceship that somehow became one of the most enduring artifacts in American television history. The Robinson family never made it home in the story. The people who played them never stopped finding their way back to each other. That is the version of Lost in Space that history forgot to tell. And now you know all of it. Tell us in the comments which of these secrets genuinely surprised you the most. If this changed the way you see Lost in Space, or brought back a memory you had completely forgotten, hit like and subscribe, because there is a lot more of this kind of story on the way.